Okay, starting over. I record without the enough space on the phone to save it. So that's fun. Happens for a reason, alright? Not like I didn't want me getting that stuff out, or I don't know. There's a reason for everything. One more time. I gotta get this stuff out, and I don't talk to anybody. So this is how I have to do it. I don't talk to anybody for now. I would like to, eventually. I just gotta find like-minded people to speak to. And you go through an awakening, and you're like, I'm limited in that that area. Darn it. I think that happens. It's a global awakening, and eventually we'll get there, and yay! So I was talking about the dreams that I've been having. Sometimes there's some that are really beautiful, and I love those. There's other days where I'm aware that whatever's the summer dreams. Others I think I go into like a trance state because I'll like lay down for a nap for like 30 minutes, and I'll have like a whole scene play out. And I could be wrong, but I don't think that you dream until you're in like REM sleep, and I don't believe you can get into that within like 20 or 30 minutes. And then it's like when it ends, I'm awake, like right awake. I wake right up. But I find that there's times that happens, and I can't recall all the time what I'm seeing, but I'll wake up praying a lot. But then I also have dreams, like I said in the other video, where I'm having dreams with a father and son, listening to them tell me stories about how proud they are of the things that they build. And those are like the beautiful ones that help me to stay like grounded and kind of center myself and be like, okay, at least I'm on the right side of things. That's good. That was called Clean Water. I was listening to how they build waterways and how proud they are, and that was called Clean Water. And in my visions, the Most High was just an energy. It wasn't a man, just an energy. But in my dreams, he looked like Merlin. He looked just like Merlin. Which I feel like that's a good sign. But I'll have dreams too, and then when I wake up, sometimes like I can hear other, I don't know, through the veil, other dimensions, other frequencies. And sometimes I'm a little alarmed by the stuff that I hear. Right? But if it's happening, I feel that we have a duty to a higher power, to higher realms, higher dimensions, to each other, to speak about these things and try and get the word out that this is happening, and I'm not the only one it's happening to. I remember having a dream the other night that made me feel not bad, and I wasn't scared, just a little uncomfortable, I guess. And when I woke up, I was what I heard, and I was awake. This wasn't in the dream. I could hear something say it's a matter of God. So it feels, you hear stuff like that, you're like, okay, this is important. Right, and I've been trying to figure out what to do with self since this started, right? Like, for instance, I'm in an area where I'm not very happy. I've been through a lot where I'm from, and I'm desperately wanting to heal. And that's difficult to do in the same place where so much has, you've been through so much. But I'm also like, and it's very expensive around here. Very expensive. But I'm trying to figure, where's the place that's the most conducive to my healing and the journey that I'm on now, right? Because it's different from what most people are doing with their lives, and that's okay. That's, I just am somebody that I woke up one day and was like, oh, okay, new path. And the beautiful thing about that is that, like, I used to run a business and I was doing very well and I had all my things, and then all of a sudden everything started getting, I was either giving it away or it was getting taken away, or something was happening to where that was just, all my stuff was, however, like, I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel going through it. It felt very dark and I felt very lost, which is why I feel the business started. There's more to it than that I speak about in another video, but I'm not going to elaborate on now. My path is very different now. Confirmation. I've been going through really intense spiritual experiences, especially over like the last year. I was having some things happen for the last couple of years and then the last like year. But I've always been sensitive to things. Spirit has always sent me signs, like any time that I lost a loved one, there was always signs almost immediately that, like, hey, we crossed over, we're okay. But that was about the extent of it. Minor other things occasionally. So I've always had like this connection, right? I've always been able to kind of see truths that others could not. But I was also told that meant something was wrong with me, because it was very hard for me to fit in with most people because I was like that. And rather than it being seen as a gift that could be nurtured for the betterment of the species, and again, not that it was wrong, it just, I don't think we were at a place in our consciousness evolution as a species at the time for people to recognize that maybe that was potential evolution versus, mental illness. Like, mental health is still important. Always get that checked out, especially if you're not sure what you're going through. However, it becomes difficult to address mental health without addressing the spirit as well, I feel. And also with not looking at it through the lens of, is this potential evolution, as being the first question, and how can we assist in this for the longevity and of the species, and to accelerate the awakening of humanity again, because truth be told, we have been sleeping for a long time. I don't like to make any assumptions about that as to like what happened at Fizz Sleep, and it could just potentially be that other beings came in and manipulated the animal DNA to create the human vessels. I mean, the science kind of shows that one. And then I feel it's up to the species to learn how to ascend and to grow on its own, because how better to learn than to experience, which I feel is kind of like why spiritual testing and karmic debts, things like that, depending on how you look at it, that's what I feel it's all really been about. Going back to the beginning, And it's like, if we can start looking at things like that as these differences, are they potential evolution instead of, something's, Because I just, I wonder, had my gifts been nurtured as a child versus being told that I was bruised, damaged, and broken, which granted, I started going through trauma at a young age. How much different and how much further along could we have been? But we're at that point where we're getting to kind of reassess those things now, so that's cool. Right, and these things are actually happening to many people, but it's the Great Awakening, it's the revelation, it's the we're waking up, we're remembering. So why it's called Revelations, because we wake up and we're like, holy bananas, I forgot. It's like, yeah, we all did. Welcome to the wake-up call. And let's just hope that it gets guided correctly, because it takes us out of our comfort zone, right? We've all have been told one thing for so long, or, depending where you're at. So many people are just told, like, this is the way it is, without actually looking into anything else to be like, how does my soul feel? Like, this is what I was told, and it feels okay. Got some questions, but it feels okay. But what else do you look into and research to truly know how your soul feels over what your mind says that you're supposed to feel and how it's supposed to be because somebody else told you? How do you actually know who and what you are without attempting to get outside of that comfort zone and to research and to learn as much as possible, even if it's just for knowledge? Even if it's just for knowledge. And there's many that are afraid to even do that. They'll be like, oh, you can't read that, that's bad. And to learn something? 11:11. I understand. I get it. And it's not that we come from spirit, we go back to spirit, and there's some that make it, that stuff's bad, and it's the E word, and it's like, yeah, so are some people. Yeah? Respect goes a heck of a lot further than fear does, but then again, what's your reason and intention for the things that you do? Are you trying to control everything? Which, technically, when you realize we come from spirit and go back to spirit, the sense of control is just an illusion, because you may have it temporary here in physical, and then spirit's over there like, oh, you gotta come back home soon, buddy. And then it's like, uh-oh. And then I gotta be like, forgive me, I woke up very fast to like something greater, and just all the illusions just went, there they go. And I have to catch that because I've been in solitude for so long, and then like extreme isolation for a while. And I just kind of started waking up, and it was intense. And I've had to really spend a lot of time. Something stepped in and assisted in my awakening too, because I was in such a deep state of grief. I spent the year and a half on my knees almost every night, screaming to the heavens, wanting to know why God forgot me. I never lost faith, I felt like I was forgotten. Because I've been struggling to survive and to cope and to try and heal since I was 4 when it started. As long as I can remember, nearly. And then it was like something stepped in, because I kept trying to heal, right? I kept going to the therapist and to the hospitals, and the courts got involved, and trying to do anything and everything I could to heal. And then it was like, my visions had started right before the courts got involved. And those first ones were really scary. But then I researched things like Enoch, and his first few were very scary also. And I wonder, is that like going through the levels of heaven, right? And maybe the first few are scary for a reason. And then it's like I went through this whole process of trying to heal and confirmation. And then after that, when the visions started up again, they were beautiful. They were absolutely beautiful. And the reason I can tell the difference between visions, hallucinations, dreams, all that, because I've experienced all of them. I was wide awake when I was having the visions, first and foremost. And it was the love that I would feel. Like I said, when they first started, it was very scary. There was a comfort there, like I knew something was with me protecting me, but it was like my soul, the energy of my soul, I feel like was being gauged in those moments. And I could tell the visions were from something that happened a very, very long time ago. Like beginning of time type of thing is what it seemed like, and I could tell by the clothing that was being worn. And it makes me very uncomfortable to talk about. It scared me a lot. Um, when they started up again, though, they were very different, and this is after I tried seeking, help and going into places and not getting any of that. Right, and I feel like that's why I want the courage to be able to speak about these things, because I feel like those things don't just happen for no reason. You start having experiences like that with higher powers, higher realms, higher dimensions. There's a reason for that, especially when things are so out of balance down here. And I was in a place where my soul was hurting so bad. I spent a year and a half on my knees, literally screaming to the heavens, not being very good to myself, dealing with some other things that I didn't realize at the time I was dealing with, because I didn't know about stuff like that. I had to research and really look into things, and then go back and look at some of the stuff that was happening at the time, and the kind of people that I had around, and the kind of things they were into, which I think was another reason why the visions started. And it's the kind of things most people don't even know are a thing. But I feel too, because I was desperately trying to find some kind of true healing, and I kept getting let down. It was like confirmation. Something stepped in, and Spirit stepped in and was like, I'm gonna get you through this. And I went into just silence and the meditation for like 12 plus hours a day, every day for nearly a year. And most of it, especially at first, was challenging my mind, trying to fix, because nothing else was doing it. I kept doing the hospitals and the treatments and the therapies and the meds and all of it, and it didn't work. So something else stepped in and was like, we're gonna fix this. And I thank God every day for that. The Most High, Source. There's so many names for that energy. It depends who you're talking to, whatever makes them comfortable. When I have my visions, it does not get angry at what you call it, as long as we show respect and remember that there's something higher than us. That is what matters to that energy more than anything else. He's the creator of all things, so technically it doesn't really get offended. Other than, I feel like maybe I let it down a little bit because I tapped out of life altogether, which my understanding was like, that's the one thing you're not supposed to do, because we are many manifestations of the Source down here trying to experience for the same way we are always trying to find out who and what we are. We are like many manifestations of Source trying to figure out who and what it is. For the simplest way to explain the experiences that I was having when this was happening. And I had many visions. Most of them I was being shown as being in like a coma state, and loved ones on the other side trying to wake me up. I look back now because I've kind of awakened, and I get what it all meant, right? We've been sleeping, and most people don't even realize or recognize that that's what they're doing. And it may just not be their journey, right? Some of us come into an incarnation to go through lots and lots of things, specifically with the goal of awakening to our soul while we're here in the physical, which is one of the hardest things I feel you can do. I've been going through it, and it's not an easy thing to get through. I feel there's many people, especially at this day and age, when as a planet we need so much healing, that there's many people going through this, and they don't even realize, because it's not an open conversation yet, that that's what's happening to them. They're quick to go into a doctor and start taking meds and do anything to suppress, not realizing that what they're actually dealing with is a spiritual malady, not something in the mind. I had to be careful how I say that. When you understand that the universe itself is mental, then technically it's part of it, but you can't actually heal those things without addressing the spiritual aspect, generational, ancestral wounding. It's all intertwined. Right, but this is something people are waking up and starting to remember now, something that due to dogma and very strict patriarchal beliefs, you try to convince everybody that that's, oh. And then you wake up and you're like, do you guys know what you're talking about? And sadly, yeah, they do. Are they right? No, but they know that too. There's part of also what's been keeping everybody asleep. They completely try to disregard the divine feminine altogether, which is bananas to me. I mean, technically, they disregarded the divine masculine and the divine feminine and just went with like masculine feminine or just masculine patriarchy for a while. Depends who you're talking to, you know. They tried to get rid of the divine portion of it, which is obvious when you wake up. You can't really fake divinity. And many people will can say that they're of the divine, while telling you that, you know, your loyalty lies with your checkbook, or if you befriend somebody of another belief system or race, creed, religion, or culture, you're going to go to for all eternity, and then they'll call themselves divine. It's like, do you even hear what you're saying? Do you sit with yourself long enough to like challenge those thoughts and be like, maybe I'm wrong? Because I don't understand how the creator of all things could just look and be like, this is the only way, and it doesn't even make sense. It literally makes zero sense. None at all. I'll say personal opinion, but it's also, when you understand that divinity is unconditional love and acceptance and unity and truth and honesty and all those good things, and you're like, and it's not that the belief systems in and of themselves are bad. It's just how they sell their stories that's the problem. Or the fact that they take like I like calling them spiritual texts, because technically that's what they're supposed to be, and then revise them every couple years. Like, it's supposed to be, I think, 10% every time they rewrite it, and then it's like, that doesn't make sense, and it's due to like plagiarism, and it's like that you're talking about spiritual texts that technically are supposed to be about the journey of the soul. We knew this in ancient times, and then it's like, well, what happened? And you look back at our history, you're like, oh, well, we know what happened. It's like, I know that I should be careful about what I'm saying, but I also know who I work for. And I'm not about the greed and the corruption or the lies and the deceit. So I know who I work for, and I'm just going to speak truth and what I know and understand, and not be afraid. But that's a choice. That's a choice. Who do you choose to be? And you wake up too, and you recognize like the way that spirit or energies or personality traits, characteristics, traumas, again, depending on who you're speaking to, their level of awareness and what makes them comfortable, depends like the epitome of spiritual discernment, right? And when you start to see these things, that's what makes you then start questioning some of these people with quote unquote spiritual authority. I'll say, I don't like to use the R word, just because I want to be respectful, but then at the same time, it's like sometimes you hear some of them. I don't know. I guess my view on things like that many years ago, as I sat in a very big church full of thousands of people and had to spend 45 minutes listening to this guy before they turned the cameras on for national TV speak about your loyalty lies with your checkbook. I'll never forget that statement. And if it wasn't for the group of people that I was with and showing respect, I would have got up and walked out immediately. And there were so many people inside this church that could barely put food on their plates to feed their families. And yet they're going into a church to be made to feel that if they don't do this, that they're gonna, for eternity, it's one of the cruelest things I think you could tell somebody to try and convince them that that's how they save their soul. It's one of the meanest things that you can say, and that's the truth. That's the truth. And then the same kind of places that'll preach Jesus, which was totally against that. He was against the high taxes, and you'll give this much to save your soul. He was against those things, but then they'll turn around and preach it. And it's like, do you guys even hear the way you sound? Do you not? And it's like, I don't know, maybe they might. It's aggravating. I've been going like for months now, waking up to all this, just having epiphanies, right? Revelations about truth. And you just start to wake up to these things and you're like, I had issues with it. I spent a lot of time in tears. I cried for Jesus. I pray to him constantly too, because his teachings were beautiful and the man that he was beautiful, but he went against the status quo and he was willing to challenge the people at the time, and then look what happened because of that. And the goal is ultimately to be of Christ consciousness, and then the same people that say to follow Jesus, are you of Christ consciousness? Because they can act like it, but then you recognize where some, not all, some of that false light is coming from when they're making you feel like you have to pay to save your soul. It's like, what the... You're not making any sense. And then you go back further in our history and you realize, like, in ancient times it was to donate and to offer certain parts of your crops to contribute to feeding the kingdoms of the time. And you gave what you could. They've turned it now into a monopoly, which is the saddest thing ever. And I feel like I have to speak about it. And again, this is conversations between self and soul that I do on my phone, so I can look back at them and be like, gauge where I'm at. But I'm struggling with it, and I get that not everybody's willing or wanting to wake up, so it's conversations you can't just go out and have with everybody, because not everybody's ready or even wants to hear these things. And if they're not in a position or a place to be able to sit with themselves and truly do the inner work to actually heal, it's not even fair to attempt to have these conversations with just anybody. Whether it's truth or not, like I'm learning asking truth or comfort is a really important question, and then being able to have the spiritual discernment enough to know that if somebody says truth that they're not really in the right place to hear it, that you gotta kind of be mindful of those things and be like, I don't know if that was totally honest. I thought I wanted truth, and then I woke up, I was like, oh, it's an awakening, this is gonna be great, and then I started to see through lots of stuff. I'm like, oh man. Right, but how else do we heal? Like, I get that, like, I feel like I've been tasked with a difficult job because you go through this awakening and you realize that you're channeling for a higher power, and you want to speak from a place of truth, and you know that that's going to agitate some people and ruffle some feathers. But how do you instill real change without speaking the truth? How do you truly, as a collective, on a soul level, for the good of all people, how do you heal without speaking the truth? Right? That's one of our, it's technically the primordial womb, the word. And it's like micro to macro. The word is what, or the sound, is what created the material universe. And until things seek balance, they can be overwhelming. But it's like what do you choose to be? Do you choose to speak truth and come from a place in the heart and from love and honesty, which is perfect balance if we're being honest? And truly seek balance first within yourself, and then stepping out to assist others that are ready. And that's why you're supposed to be mindful of who you speak to, how you speak, and when to speak to people, and to make sure that they're ready for truth. Because if they're not, that can throw their system out of whack a little bit by hearing things that they're not yet ready to hear, because they're either not ready or willing to sit to know thyself and go through the pain. Because when you start hearing truths like that, not only may you need to heal from things that you're dealing with just in your own life, but also from those generational ancestral woundings that we've had for thousands of years. It's having to sit and go through that pain and see things from a different perspective and be like, and that's what I've been going through for this whole last year, and not really knowing where to go to talk to anybody, But thankfully, too, we're in a place in our species evolution where, like, now we have internet. We're able to commune and connect with people from all over the world. We're able to get different perspectives and ask questions, and it's become this global awakening where people are waking up all over the world and starting to put pieces together because they're trying to desperately understand who they are and what they truly feel, and to heal. And that's a thing I feel like, not only like my generation, for instance, there's lots of black sheep from my generation. Not only is it trying to heal from that, but it's going back generations all the way to the beginning, really, where we have yet to truly speak as a collective about the pain that's been done to all of us, right? And I look forward to the day where we're able to have these conversations and truly attempt as a species to heal on the deepest possible levels. Setting our planet free, essentially, finally, because that was the promise, right? That one day there'd be this big awakening and people would start to remember But that's difficult, especially for the ones going through it first, the trailblazers of this whole awakening. And it's the way I see it is that next step in the species evolution, right? Where we're ready to kind of look back. And this one, as far as I can understand, is one of the biggest ones that we've had because of the fact we're all able to connect around the world now. So it's this awakening that's happening to many people, and many of us are being pulled to sit in solitude and really understand, because how else, if you're listening to everybody else give an opinion or tell you what and who you are or how to handle something or this is the only way it is, how do you actually know? And like for me, I stopped watching TV. I stopped listening to a lot of the music I used to listen to. I sat in meditation for a very long time. I challenged my thoughts. I challenged the things that I believed. I researched a lot of things. It was like, what makes sense to my soul? And going through that process at the same time of trying to heal from years of trauma that I had been through, it's been one of the hardest things that I've ever done, and I've done it very much alone, but recognizing that I needed to do it that way, because I could have gone anywhere else and been like, tell me how to get through this, and they would have been like, here's some pills, or here's a book, it's the only way to do it. And then it's like, are you sure? And it's like it's easy as a society to tell people that that's how to do it. Because it takes longer and more effort to get through that process of healing. And I got to the place where like I had to start speaking about these things. When I started to awaken, I started to read like the books that they don't include in the Bible, like Book of Thomas, and I was able to not only understand the words but comprehend what they meant. Because I was feeling it. And that's the point of those things. It's not just about understanding what they say, it's can you feel it on a soul level and truly comprehend the meaning of those things. But he speaks about, if you let out what is within you, it will save you, and if you do not, it harms you. That's not the term that he used, but I don't like the other one. I'm mindful with my word choice because words matter, quote unquote. And then you understand frequency and vibration and sound and energy and whatnot, and how important the words we choose to use are. I had to wake up to all this stuff just one day. It was like, oh, I'm gonna sit and talk to self and to source and self and soul a lot. And I record so I can go back and I can look at these things and be like, engagement process, how am I doing, There's lots going on up here in monogamy. Too much. That's a good thing, though, I don't know, my focus is just getting it right this time, because last incarnation, last one. So I want to get through this, offer as much as I can about my healing journey and assisting others in it, and then, I don't know, ascend to past this earth matrix, because joys of being an ascended master. I feel like that was my goal in this incarnation, was to go through so much stuff that my soul completely fragmented, and I can go through a great awakening, truly become of Christ consciousness, live from a place in my heart where I understood my own worth and my own value as a soul, ascend, and become an ascended master on the other side, and help humanity from over there, where when I was in my visions, it's not nearly as painful there as it is here. bells over there. It's good. It's making me smile. Makes me happy. I don't know, I've been having a lot of, I guess, clairsentient experiences too, which kind of just started up one day. Trying to understand those. The visions of things that led up to all of that starting, and strange dreams that I have, waking up the way that I do sometimes. I mean, I've had nights where I woke up feeling, and my understanding, I kind of just had like a spontaneous Kundalini awakening one day, which some say that can't happen, and then I'm like, BS, because it happened when my visions started, except mine didn't come from the base of the spine, it came in from the top of the crown down, and that's when my visions began, and it lasted 3 days, and then on the third day when the visions ended, it stopped immediately, and I almost went to the hospital that day because I didn't know what was happening. I didn't feel bad, I felt strained, my whole body was vibrating. I didn't know what it was, and at the time I didn't even know what the word Kundalini was. And since then, like, my experiences have gotten even more intense, where like I'll wake up in the middle of the night and have this, one night it was really bad, scared the heck out of me, to be honest, to where it was almost, not even almost, it was painful. It was this shock that went up halfway up my spine and kind of skipped up here and then into my head, and it scared the heck out of me, but it was painful. It woke me up from, I was asleep, and I just, like, I woke up and I felt it shoot up my spine, and I wasn't trying to make these things happen either. Like, I wasn't doing yoga. I didn't even know what this stuff was when it started. I was guided to meditate one day, and I did that, and then, ta-da! Like, But I've been trying to understand and figure out what's been happening to me ever since these things started. And some of the experiences are strange. And then I pick up on some frequencies, I'm like, they're lying. They don't know. Now you gotta understand too, when you wake up to the more eternal journey of the soul, and you realize how many people aren't even aware of what that is, and the things that they can be involved in, and the reason and intention for what they do. I pray for their souls, you know? Many that don't understand the wounding that they can put on their souls, like, for they know not what they do, when they're consumed by the wrong things. First question should always be reason and intention for the things that you do, and make sure that it's in alignment with truth and honesty and honor and dignity and integrity, something higher than yourself. But it's a choice, right? Different soul journeys. Hey, yeah, right there, but you can't even get in there. Take a break.